For the next hour or so, I'll be asking questions of the two candidates running for Garfield County's District 2 Commissioner seats. The candidates are incumbent John Martin, the Republican, and Martin-Acha, the Democrat. To start off, each candidate will give an opening statement of up to 2 minutes, and after that I'll ask a series of questions. The rules of engagement are a 2-minute answer and a 1-minute response if necessary. We'll start with the incumbent, John Martin.
Well, thank you, Randy, and thank you to all the listeners out there. I do have a face for radio, so thank you for letting me be on the radio here. Been a policeman, 25 years in Glenwood Springs, a cobbler, a mechanic, even a bartender to listen to all the troubles of the world. And then I got all that together and became a county commissioner to make efficiency in government work a little bit better. 20 years of doing that, some folks think that's way too long. That makes other people nervous because I've been there and learned so much. But I think it's the best for the citizens. And I'm going to continue to do that as long as I can. Hopefully, within the next 4 years, I'll be able to pass on all that nice knowledge that I've gained to the other folks coming up behind me and take a back seat and then retire. Wait a minute, I hear a cheer there. I didn't quite hear a retirement cheer. But anyway, there's some out there that think that's a good thing to do. But I love this, and I love doing what we're doing, and we've come a long, long way. So thank you very much for the experience.
Thanks, John. Mr. Acha?
Thank you, Randy. My name is Martin-Acha. I live in Newcastle. I'm a father. I'm a husband. A local businessman. I've been a soldier in the United States Air Force. Served my country all over the world, all over the United States. I've got my education through the University of Maryland and through the School of Hard Knocks. And I want to bring that experience to Garfield County. I want to grab the reins. I want to be a leader when it comes to creating a better future for Garfield County and the citizens that live here. With the voters' support, I hope to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk first about the elephant that has emerged in the campaign, and I don't mean the Republican. The Democrats finding that you, Commissioner Martin, had to repay the county $1,800 for expenses from travel. They said that they would seek to indict you if you didn't resign and move to Delta County. Why hadn't you told the county about the other reimbursement you got on these trips? And in 2 minutes, what do voters need to know about this?
Well, that's pretty easy. I belong to an organization, Colorado Counties, and 8 steering committees for legislative action. 1, which has a trust fund for public lands issue, have a traveling team of 8. They defer some of the cost to the counties for public land issues in Washington, D.C. and other places. That advancement is $25 a day for travel in reference to the first and last day, $50 for deferred expenses. So here's a test. In reference to going to Washington, D.C., CCI pays for the airfare and the hotel. Also gives me that advance. There's no requirement to report that to anyone. It is between that association and myself. So the first thing that we do is park the car. $8 a day. Who pays for that? That money that came in advance. Who pays for the checked luggage? I do. That's $25 each way. That's $50. That's $100 in the first day before I got on the hotel. Get to the airport. How do I get from Reagan International to Woodley Park? And if you know where Woodley Park is, it's across town, the northwest section of Washington, D.C. What's a taxi cab? $48, $50 each way, going and coming, because I have to come back. There's $200 right there. Now, have I had a meal yet? And the answer is no. Did I shine my boots? No. What about the 4 trips I have to make from Woodley Park to the Capitol, to Cannon Building, Longworth Building, and to the Senate Building, Russell, etc.? Those are taxi cab rides, $15 to $20 with. Well, that's another how many dollars have I spent? And that comes from the advance dollars. All of that has been reported to the accountants. They ignored that. The accountant recommendation was I paid that $300 back to the county because I got in advance. And because I used my P card, which is a purchase card, to take care of meals while I was there. So I gave that back, and that came out of my pocket. So now the county has the $300, the receipts for any activity, and I'm out $1,800 for 3 years because of that scenario. Why don't you take the test and see exactly how much money I absconded with in reference to the county taxpayer dollars? And the answer is nothing.
Mr. Acha, what's your interpretation of this, and do you think it was reasonable to urge Mr. Martin to resign and move from the county?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to understand this situation primarily, you have to first realize what happened. What happened was when I initially signed on board with the county and I announced my candidacy, a number of employees, current and former employees for the county, approached me. I've even been approached by a former elected official telling me about some difficulties that they had while working for the county. Now, in doing so, what I did was I chose, rather than using what little funds I did have available toward advertisement and campaign expenses, I used that money to get the core documents to investigate these concerns that were brought to me. And sure enough, we found that there are issues. Now, with regards to what John Martin has said, now everybody's under the impression that this is $1,800, but it is so much more than $1,800. You have the original $1,800, then you have $3,000 that was spent on top of that, plus a $7,500 bill from an independent investigator that came in. Right there, we're in excess. We're pushing $12,000 right there. That simple $1,800 is $1,200 or is $12,000 worth of expense. That's the true cost to the county. Now, John just gave an answer about taxi rides and so forth. Per diem is per diem. It is food. The other expenses, the taxi rides, the check-ins, and what have you, yes, they are legitimate expenses. You keep the receipts and you itemize those on your travel voucher. That's the way it works. It works the same in the county as it used to work when I was in the military. Anybody that's been in the military, it works the same way. That stuff is above and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, $12,000 is what this ultimately cost us at the end of this investigation. $12,000, and the investigators looked at a 7-day period. There's 51 more weeks in a year. If this was to happen every week, $12,000, that's $765,000.
You know, $7,500.
I know it's extreme.
$7,500 of that was the audit.
It was, but go ahead.
So you're implying that there was $12,000 in his expenses, and that's not the case, and I just want to clarify that.
No.
I asked, too, about the Democrats asking John to move to Delta County. What do you think of that?
Well, actually, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't want to go today without addressing that. Ladies and gentlemen, when it came to this, when this meeting occurred, Bob Shively and Andy Quaid had planned to do this meeting. Now, the way it was expressed to me, and from what my understanding is, just 3 old politicians that were going to meet around the table. The 2 politicians from the Democratic side were doing so as professional courtesy. It was just 3 old politicians with more yesterdays than tomorrows ahead of them, and they were going to say, let John know what they had found out of professional courtesy. Now, 2 weeks prior to that, John had given an interview with the Post-Independent where he alluded at the end of his interview that it was his intent someday to retire in Delta. And I think that at the meeting that they had, and there again, I wasn't in attendance, I think what they did was they alluded to that maybe it was time to go to that retirement. I think this whole thing's just been twisted in such a way that it looks like extortion, but it really wasn't. It was just 3 old politicians sitting around the table giving each other the professional courtesy of what they had found. That's all it is.
Mr. Martin, the second finding about your meals today talked about charges that you have made for lunch with another commissioner, often Commissioner Sampson, on days when the county commission is meeting.
Or other meetings as well.
And you told Ryan Summerlin, our reporter, that
And he
that's allowed under county policy. And when I ask as a fiscal conservative, and you're very proud of the county's finances and your stewardship over that, how does that look to the public?
I think it looks like a legitimate business transaction. What amounts to is we're on county business, we're doing county time. We're not talking about, again, lunch, we're talking about family, we're talking about religion, we're talking about philosophy, etc. But we're also on the clock in reference to what we have to do in front of us, and that is a business meeting, business of the citizens. It has been a policy and a practice since the P cards came out, and that's been a long time. That policy can be changed, it can be talked about, and if it's a real issue that we feel that we need to, we will talk about that one. We set that so that all the other elected officials and numerous other department heads and employees have that same opportunity. If you happen to have a senator come into town and talk to some of the folks, is it a legitimate thing to take him to lunch and have lunch with him and use your purchase card? We think it is, because it's good practice, it's etiquette. It is something that decorum calls upon. You don't ask someone, such as another organization, another elected official, to pay for his own business.
I think
It's
the
a
optics of this have, when you and Mike Sampson had lunch at May Palace, how does that look to the public?
like we're having social activity.
And
Is it
it's on the
well,
county's time.
It is, simply because we're on county time, doing county business prior and after. We're not doing business during. We're talking about many other things.
Okay, let's move on to some other questions.